I was staring at the spreadsheet on my laptop, the blue light reflecting in my glasses, when my phone buzzed. It was Sarah, my older sister. I hesitated. It was 7:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. Usually, this is when she calls to complain about her husband's lack of ambition or to ask if I can loan her $50 for a field trip fee she forgot about. But today was different. Today, we were supposed to be finalizing the logistics for Mom's 70th birthday trip to Lake Tahoe. I picked up, putting on my supportive sister voice. "Hey, Sarah, I was just looking at the cabin rental confirmation. Did you get the itinerary I sent?" There was a pause on the other end, a heavy, pregnant pause that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. "Yeah, Georgia, about that," Sarah said. Her voice had that sugary, high-pitched tone she uses when she's about to deliver bad news but wants to frame it as a favor. "Caleb and I were talking with Mom last night. We've been thinking about the vibe of the trip." "The vibe?" I asked, minimizing the spreadsheet. I had paid the $3,500 deposit for that cabin 3 months ago. I had arranged the catering. I had even booked the boat rental. "Well, you know how stressful things have been for Caleb lately," Sarah continued, speaking quickly now. "With him being between jobs again and the pressure of the twins, Mom really wants this weekend to be about intimate family bonding, just the core units, parents and kids." I blinked, trying to process the words. Core units? Sarah, I'm Mom's daughter. "I'm pretty sure I'm core family." Of course, she rushed to correct me, though the insincerity dripped from every syllable. "But you're single, Georgia. You don't have kids. It's just that the cabin is going to be chaotic with my 3 and Caleb's 2. Mom thought it might be too overwhelming for you. We want you to relax, so we decided to make it an immediate family trip, just the grandkids and the parents." I felt a cold flush spread through my chest. It wasn't just anger. It was the familiar, dull ache of exclusion. I was the CFO of a mid-sized logistics company. I managed multi-million-dollar budgets. I certainly could handle a chaotic cabin. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice steady despite the trembling of my hand. "You're uninviting me from Mom's 70th birthday? The trip I planned? The trip I paid the deposit for?" "Oh, don't worry about the deposit," Sarah chirped. "Mom said she'd count that as your birthday gift to her. Isn't that sweet? It makes things so much simpler. You won't have to worry about buying a present." My jaw tightened so hard I thought a tooth might crack. It wasn't about the money. It was never about the money. It was the principle. I was the wallet. I was the planner. But when it came time to make memories, I was surplus to requirements. I was the lighting technician who gets locked out of the theater once the show starts. "I see," I said. "And does Mom know you're calling me?" "She's right here," Sarah said. "She agrees it's for the best. She wants you to have a quiet weekend to yourself. You work so hard, Georgia. You look so tired lately." "You look so tired." That was their code for, "You look like you need to be managed." I closed my eyes. "Okay, Sarah, if that's what Mom wants." "It is," she said, sounding relieved. "You're the best, Georgia. Really, so understanding." She hung up before I could say anything else. I sat there in my home office, surrounded by the silence of my empty house. The house I bought myself. The house they loved to criticize for being too big for one person, but were always happy to crash in when their AC broke or they needed to escape their spouses. I looked at the picture on my desk. It was from Christmas 2 years ago. Mom was in the center, holding Caleb's hand. Sarah was leaning on her shoulder. I was standing off to the side, half cut out of the frame because I was the one holding the camera. It was always like this. Caleb, my younger brother, was the golden child. He could do no wrong, despite having 3 failed startups and a gambling habit he thought he hid well. Sarah was the saintly mother whose entire identity revolved around her 3 poorly behaved children, and I was Georgia, the provider, the ATM, the one they called when the roof leaked or the lawyer needed a retainer fee. But uninviting me from the trip I paid for, that was a new low. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the manicured lawn of my suburban Minneapolis home. I felt a strange cocktail of emotions. Hurt, yes, but also a simmering rage that felt different this time. Usually I'd cry. I'd wonder what was wrong with me. I'd wonder why my success made me less lovable in their eyes. But tonight, the tears didn't come. Instead, I felt a tightness in my chest, a realization that I was playing a game I couldn't win. They didn't want my company. They wanted my resources. And once they had secured the cabin deposit, I was disposable. I didn't know it then, but that phone call was just the opening act. The real show, the display of sheer, unadulterated audacity, was about to begin, and it would change everything. The next morning, I woke up with a headache that throbbed behind my eyes. I tried to focus on work, reviewing quarterly projections, but my mind kept drifting back to Sarah's voice. Immediate family only. Around 10 a.m., my phone rang again. It was Sarah, again. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but my curiosity got the better of me. What else could she possibly want? Had they decided to ask for gas money too? "Hello?" I answered, keeping my tone neutral. "Hey, Georgia." Sarah sounded breathless, like she was running around. "So, listen, slight change of plans regarding logistics. Since you're not coming to Tahoe, we have a huge favor to ask. It's actually a great opportunity for you to bond with the kids." My stomach dropped. Bond with the kids? I thought this was a core family trip. "Well, yes, for the adults," she said, breezing past her own contradiction. "But Mom really wants to relax, like really relax. And you know how high energy my boys are, and Caleb's twins are going through that screaming phase. We were thinking, since you have the whole weekend free now, and you have that big empty house." She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't have to. "You want me to babysit," I said flatly, "while you go on the vacation I paid for." "Not just babysit," Caleb chimed in. He must have been on speakerphone. His voice was loud, arrogant, the voice of a man who has never faced a real consequence in his life. "We want you to host them. Look, sis, daycare is expensive, and we can't take them all to the lake. It's not safe. Plus, you're always saying you want to see them more. It's a win-win. We'll drop them off Friday morning and pick them up Tuesday night. 5 kids, under the age of 10, for 5 days." "You want me to watch 5 children alone?" I asked, my grip on the phone tightening. "Caleb, your twins have special dietary needs. Sarah, your youngest, isn't fully potty trained." "You're smart. You'll figure it out," Caleb laughed. "You run a company, right? Managing 5 rugrats should be a piece of cake compared to your spreadsheets. Besides, Mom thinks it's the best solution. She said you'd want to contribute since you're not going." Contribute. The word hung in the air like a foul smell. "I have work, Caleb. I have a job," I said. "It's the weekend," Sarah interrupted. "And you can take Monday and Tuesday off. You have unlimited PTO, don't you? Must be nice. Look, Georgia, don't be selfish. Mom is turning 70. Do you really want to stress her out by making us drag the kids along? Selfish." There it was, the weaponized word they used whenever I tried to set a boundary. Before I could answer, I heard a car horn outside. I walked to the front window and pulled back the curtain. My breath hitched. Parked in my driveway was a brand new pearl white SUV. It was massive, luxurious, with leather seats and a top-tier sound system. It was the exact car Mom had been hinting she wanted for years. Is Mom outside?" I asked. "Oh yeah," Caleb said, sounding proud. "We're actually on our way to pick up some gear. Mom wanted to swing by and say hi." "Do you like the ride? We picked it up yesterday. Surprise birthday gift for her." I froze. You bought Mom a $70,000 car? Caleb, you borrowed money from me last month for rent. Sarah, you said you couldn't afford the field trip fee. We pooled our resources, Caleb said vaguely. And, well, Mom helped with the down payment. It's an investment, safety first, right? I knew exactly where that help came from. Last week, I had transferred $15,000 to Mom's account because she told me she needed urgent dental surgery and some house repairs. She had cried, saying she was in pain. She didn't get surgery. She bought a car for Caleb to drive her around in. I watched them through the window. Mom stepped out of the passenger seat. She looked healthy, radiant even. She was laughing at something Caleb said. She didn't look like a woman in pain. She looked like a woman who had successfully played the system. Put Mom, I said, my voice dropping an octave. Hey, sweetie, Mom's voice came through the speaker, tinny and cheerful. Did you see the car? Isn't she a beauty? It rides like a cloud. Mom, I said, did you use the money I sent for your surgery to buy a car? Silence. Then a sigh. Georgia, don't start. My teeth are fine. I just needed a pick-me-up. You have so much, and your brother has been struggling. He needs a reliable vehicle to take me to appointments. Why do you always have to make everything about money? It's so unbecoming. You asked me to babysit 5 kids so you can go to Tahoe in a car bought with my money on a trip paid for with my deposit while I stay home alone? It's not alone, honey, Mom said, her voice dripping with that manipulative sweetness. It's with your nieces and nephews. Family helps family. That's what we do. We'll drop the kids off Friday at 8 a.m. Don't be difficult. Do it for me. Click. They hung up. I stood there, staring at the phone. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. I looked out the window again. They were pulling away in the shiny white SUV. They didn't even come to the door. They just drove by to show off the trophy bought with my labor. I felt something crack inside me. It wasn't a loud break. It was a quiet, structural failure. The foundation of guilt and obligation I had built my life on was crumbling. But I wasn't done yet. I still needed to understand the full extent of the rot, and the universe, in its cruel mercy, was about to hand me the magnifying glass. I spent the rest of that day in a daze, functioning on autopilot. I went through the motions of my workday, approving budgets and answering emails, but my mind was a storm of resentment. Family helps family. The phrase echoed in my head, mocking me. Around 4 p.m., a notification popped up on my personal laptop. It was an email alert. Subject: Estate Planning Update, Evelyn Miller, Final Draft. My heart skipped a beat. A few years ago, when Mom's health had a minor scare, I had set up her email on my laptop to help her manage her medical bills. She was terrible with technology, and I was the dutiful daughter who handled the administration of her life. I had completely forgotten the account was still synced to my mail client. The email was from Mr. Henderson, the family's old estate attorney, or rather, an automated send from his paralegal. I knew I shouldn't read it. It was a violation of privacy. But after the car, after the trip, after the immediate family comment, I needed to know. I opened the attachment. It was a revised last will and testament, dated just 3 days ago. I scrolled through the legalese, my eyes scanning for my name. I found it. Article 4, Distribution of Assets. To my son, Caleb Miller, I leave the primary residence located at 42 Oak Street, valued at approximately $800,000, along with all contents therein. I also bequeath to Caleb my entire retirement savings account and the proceeds of my life insurance policy to ensure his financial stability and the well-being of his children. To my daughter, Sarah Jenkins, I leave the sum of $20,000 and my jewelry collection. I kept scrolling, my breath shallow. Where was I? To my daughter, Georgia Miller, I leave my collection of family photo albums and my gratitude. Georgia has been blessed with a successful career and financial independence. She has no dependents and no need for further material support. It is my wish that she continues to watch over her siblings, but she requires no share of the estate to survive. I sat back in my chair, the air leaving my lungs in a rush. My gratitude. She left me her gratitude. And the house at 42 Oak Street, the house where I grew up, the house that 5 years ago was on the brink of foreclosure because Mom had gambled away Dad's life insurance money. I scrolled further down. There was an email thread attached to the bottom of the draft, a conversation between Mom and Caleb. Caleb, Mom, are you sure Georgia won't flip out if she sees this? Mom, don't worry about her. She's strong. She's a survivor. You need the help, Caleb. Georgia has plenty. Besides, she's so busy with work, she probably wouldn't even have time to sell the house. It's better this way. Just make sure the lawyer finalizes it before the trip. Thanks, Mom. You're the best. I promise I'll take care of the place. And hey, once the house is in my name, I can leverage it to get that loan for the crypto business I told you about. I read that last line 3 times. Leverage it. Crypto business. Caleb wasn't going to live there. He was going to mortgage it to the hilt, gamble it away on some get-rich-quick scheme, and lose the family home within a year. And Mom was handing it to him on a silver platter, reasoning that my success was a punishment. Because I worked hard, because I saved, because I built a life, I deserved nothing. Because Caleb was lazy, irresponsible, and manipulative, he deserved everything. Tears finally pricked my eyes, but they were hot, angry tears. It wasn't the money. I didn't need the money. I had a portfolio that dwarfed Mom's estate. It was the message, the final, permanent declaration of my worth in this family. I was a resource, a utility, like electricity or running water. You only notice it when it stops working. You don't thank the electricity. You don't leave an inheritance to the water company. I looked at the date on the email again. They had rushed this through right before the trip. They wanted to celebrate Mom's 70th, secure in the knowledge that Caleb's future was set, all while I sat at home wiping their children's noses, oblivious to the fact that I had been disinherited. The audacity was breathtaking. It was almost impressive in its cruelty. I saved the PDF. Then I printed it. I walked to my safe in the closet. I spun the dial and opened the heavy steel door. Inside were my own documents, my deed, my passport, my birth certificate, and at the very back, a thick blue folder I hadn't touched in 5 years. I pulled it out. The label read, Miller Estate, 2019 Intervention. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a document, notarized and signed in blue ink. A document Mom had clearly forgotten about, or perhaps she assumed I had lost. Or maybe, in her delusional entitlement, she thought it didn't matter anymore because she was Mom. I traced Mom's signature on the bottom of the page. Quit claim deed and trust agreement. A cold, terrifying smile touched my lips. It was a smile I didn't recognize in the mirror. It wasn't Georgia the daughter. It was Georgia the CFO. Georgia the woman who kills inefficiencies and cuts losses. They thought they were playing chess. They didn't realize they were playing on a board I owned. Okay, I whispered to the empty room. You want to play immediate family? Let's play. Friday morning arrived with a gray, oppressive sky. It was 7:15 a.m. They weren't supposed to be here until 8, but the distinctive honk of the new SUV cut through the morning silence. I was standing in my kitchen, a cup of coffee in my hand. I hadn't slept. I was wearing my silk pajamas, my hair in a messy bun. I walked to the living room window, staying hidden behind the heavy velvet drapes. The white SUV was idling in my driveway. The doors flew open. Chaos erupted. 3 of Sarah's kids spilled out, screaming and shoving each other. Caleb's twins followed, one of them crying. Sarah got out, looking fresh and vacation-ready in a floral maxi dress and a wide-brimmed hat. Caleb was wearing sunglasses and a tropical shirt, looking like he was already 3 margaritas deep. Mom stepped out last, adjusting her scarf, looking like the Queen Mother surveying her kingdom. They started unloading suitcases. Not their suitcases, the kids' bags, piles of them, toys, diaper bags, portable cribs. They were dumping an entire nursery on my front porch. "Georgia!" Caleb yelled, banging his fist on my front door. "Rise and shine! The cavalry is here!" I watched them. I watched Sarah checking her makeup in the car mirror while her youngest son kicked my hydrangeas. I watched Caleb light a cigarette and flick the ash onto my pristine walkway. I watched Mom point at my upstairs window and say something that made them all laugh. They looked so happy, so unburdened. Why shouldn't they be? They had a free babysitter, a free trip, and a secret inheritance. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud explosion. It was the sound of a heavy vault door slamming shut. The snap brought clarity. The fog of guilt, the years of being the bigger person, the desperate need for their approval, it all evaporated. In its place was a crystalline, icy resolve. I wasn't going to open that door. I wasn't going to take those kids. I wasn't going to be the victim in their story anymore. I put my coffee cup down on the counter. I moved with a speed and precision I usually reserved for board meetings. I grabbed my phone. I opened the airline app. Minneapolis to Denver. Next flight, 9:30 a.m. Seat 1A. First class. Booked. I ran upstairs. I didn't pack a suitcase. That would take too long. I grabbed my go bag, a carry-on I kept ready for emergency business trips. Laptop, chargers, a change of clothes, toiletries. I threw on a pair of jeans, a cashmere sweater, and my trench coat. I grabbed my passport and my wallet. Downstairs, the banging on the door was getting rhythmic. "Georgia, come on! We're on a schedule!" Sarah screeched. "The kids need to use the bathroom!" I went to the back of the house. I slipped on my loafers. I checked the security panel on the wall. I armed the system to away mode, but I set a 60-second delay. I opened the back door, slipped out, and locked it behind me. My backyard backed onto a small alleyway. I had already called an Uber. The driver was waiting at the end of the alley, confused but patient. As I walked through the wet grass, I could hear them on the front porch. "Where is she? Her car is in the garage," Mom was saying. "Maybe she's in the shower," Caleb suggested. He pounded on the door again. "Georgia, open up." I reached the Uber. I slid into the back seat. "Airport," I told the driver. "Terminal 1. Step on it." As the car pulled away, I took my phone out. I had one last thing to do before I went completely dark. I opened the group chat named Miller Family Love. I typed, "I'm not home. I won't be home. Have a nice trip." Then I did something I should have done 20 years ago. I went to settings. Do not disturb. Block contact Mom. Block contact Sarah. Block contact Caleb. I leaned back in the seat as the car merged onto the highway. My heart was racing, but for the first time in my life, it wasn't from anxiety. It was from the adrenaline of a prisoner who had just dug their way out of the cell. I was free, but I wasn't just running away. I was going to Denver to retrieve the one thing that could burn their entitlement to the ground. The document in the blue folder wasn't enough. I needed the original, and I knew exactly where it was stored. The first-class cabin was quiet. A flight attendant handed me a glass of champagne before we even took off. I stared at the bubbles rising to the surface, mesmerized. My phone, despite being on Do Not Disturb for the big three, was lighting up with notifications from other numbers, cousins, aunts, even Sarah's husband, Mark. They were mobilizing the flying monkeys. I ignored them all. But then a number flashed across the screen that made me pause. Linda, Caleb's wife. Linda was complicated. She was quiet, mousy, and usually just shadowed Caleb like a frightened ghost. I had never really had a conversation with her that didn't involve her apologizing for something Caleb had done. Why was she calling? She was supposed to be on the trip. The plane was still taxiing. I had a few minutes. I put the phone to my ear. Hello? Georgia? Linda's voice was a whisper, trembling and wet. She was crying. Oh God, Georgia, are you okay? Sarah is screaming that you've been kidnapped. They're threatening to call the police. I haven't been kidnapped, Linda, I said calmly, taking a sip of champagne. I'm on a plane. You left? She sounded shocked, then relieved. Yes, I'm done, Linda. I know about the will. I know about the immediate family only rule. I'm not babysitting. There was a silence on the other end, broken only by a muffled sniffle. I'm not on the trip either, Linda said. I sat up straighter. What? I thought it was parents and kids. Caleb told me. He told me there wasn't enough room in the van, Linda sobbed. He took the twins. He told me to stay home and work on myself. He said I'm embarrassing to be around when I'm depressed. My grip on the glass tightened. Caleb was a monster. Georgia, Linda continued, her voice gaining a sudden, desperate intensity. I need to tell you something. I'm filing for divorce. I saw a lawyer yesterday. Good for you, Linda, I said sincerely. Take him for everything he's worth. That's the thing, she whispered. He's worth nothing, but he thinks he's about to be rich. Georgia, the trip, it's not just a birthday trip. What do you mean? They're meeting a realtor in Tahoe, a specialist in high-end vacation properties, but they aren't looking to buy. Linda took a breath. Caleb has a buyer lined up for Mom's house for 42 Oak Street, an off-market deal. He's already promised the guy he can sign the papers within 30 days of Mom passing. He's pre-selling his inheritance. My blood ran cold. He can't do that. Mom is still alive. He has power of attorney, Georgia. He got her to sign it last week along with the will. He told her it was for medical emergencies, but I saw the paperwork. It gives him control over her real estate assets. And the money? I asked, my mind racing. Where is the money from the sale supposed to go? Crypto, Linda spat the word out, and an online gambling account in Malta. He owes people money, Georgia. Bad people. That's why he needs the house sold so fast. The puzzle pieces slammed together. The rush to change the will, the exclusion of me, the only one who would read the fine print. The new car to butter Mom up? It wasn't just greed, it was desperation. Caleb was cornered, and he was feeding Mom's house to the wolves to save himself. Linda, I said, my voice low and urgent, do you have proof of the gambling debts? I have screenshots, she said. I have his bank logins. I have everything. I was saving it for the custody battle. I don't want him near the twins. Send it to me, I commanded. Everything you have. Send it to my encrypted work email, right now. What are you going to do? I'm going to make sure he never sees a dime, I said. And Linda, if you help me, I will pay for the best divorce attorney in the state. I will make sure you get full custody and child support, even if I have to garnish his wages from McDonald's for the rest of his miserable life. I'm sending it now, she said. Georgia, destroy him. Count on it. I hung up just as the flight attendant asked us to switch to airplane mode. I stared out the window as the plane accelerated down the runway. The engines roared, pushing me back into my seat. The stakes had just changed. It wasn't just about disrespect anymore. It was about fraud. It was about elder abuse, even if Mom was a willing participant in her own deception. I closed my eyes. I had the quitclaim deed copy in my safe, but the original? I had never moved the box in a safety deposit box in Denver, where I had lived for 2 years before moving back to care for Dad. I had never moved the box because I didn't trust Caleb near my important documents. I had never moved the right intuition. I was going to get the deed. I was going to get Linda's evidence. And then I was going to introduce my family to the concept of consequences. I checked into the Ritz-Carlton in Denver. I needed a war room, and I needed reliable Wi-Fi. Once I was settled, I opened my laptop and logged into my secure cloud storage. While I waited for the bank to open the next morning to get the physical deed, I needed to review the digital trail. I clicked on a folder dated September 2019. The memories washed over me, thick and suffocating. 5 years ago, I was sitting at Mom's kitchen table. The house smelled of stale coffee and anxiety. Dad had passed away 6 months prior, and the financial reality was crashing down. "I don't understand where the money went, Mom," I had said, staring at the stack of foreclosure notices. Dad had a life insurance policy, $500,000. It's gone in 6 months? Mom was weeping into a tissue, refusing to make eye contact. Caleb, who was living in the basement then, was suspiciously absent. I tried to invest it," Mom sobbed. "Caleb said he had a friend, a guaranteed return." "You gave $500,000 to Caleb?" I felt like I was going to throw up. "He promised he'd double it. We wanted to surprise you." She looked up at me, eyes pleading. "They're going to take the house, Georgia. You have to help. You're the only one with savings." I looked around the kitchen. This was my childhood home. But more importantly, it was the only asset Mom had left. If she lost this, she would be homeless. And who would have to take her in? Me. I was 33 then. I had just made partner at my firm. I had savings, yes, but paying off the arrears and the remaining mortgage would wipe out nearly everything I had built. "I can't just give you the money, Mom," I said softly. "I can't throw my future into a black hole." "But I'm your mother," she wailed. "Doesn't that mean anything?" It did. That was the curse. It meant everything. "I will save the house," I said, my voice shaking. "But things are going to change. I am not giving you the money." "I am buying the house." Mom stopped crying. "What?" "I will pay off the mortgage. I will pay the taxes. But you have to sign the deed over to me. I will put it in an LLC. You can live here rent-free for the rest of your life, provided you pay for utilities and upkeep. But the house becomes my property, legal, binding property." You want to evict your own mother?" She looked at me with horror. "No, I want to protect the asset from Caleb," I said sharply, "because if the house is in your name, he will convince you to mortgage it again. If it's in my name, he can't touch it." It took 3 days of arguing. She accused me of being cold, calculating, unloving. But the sheriff's eviction notice was taped to the door. She had no choice. We went to a notary. She signed the deed in lieu of foreclosure. She signed the lease agreement, rent $1 per year. But then, and this was the detail that saved me, I added a clause to the lease agreement. Clause 14B, termination upon financial misconduct. The landlord, Georgia Miller LLC, reserves the right to terminate this lease immediately if the tenant, Evelyn Miller, engages in any financial fraud, attempts to encumber the property, or misrepresents ownership of the property to third parties. I snapped back to the present, staring at the PDF on my screen. Misrepresents ownership. Like, say, writing a will leaving the property to someone else, or granting power of attorney to sell a house she didn't own. I leaned back in the hotel chair. Mom had forgotten. Or, more likely, in her mind, signing papers was just a bureaucratic hurdle I made her jump through to get the money. She didn't believe it was real. She believed that because she was the matriarch, her word superseded legal contracts. She thought the house was hers because she lived in it. She thought I was just the bank. I looked at the documents Linda had sent, which had just arrived in my inbox. Screenshots of Caleb's text messages to a realtor named Slick Rick. Caleb: yeah, the deed is in the old lady's name. I checked the county records online. It still shows her. I smirked. Of course. I had never recorded the deed with the county. It was a strategic choice I made back then to save Mom the embarrassment of the neighbors knowing she lost the house. I held the unrecorded deed. It was perfectly legal in our state, as long as I produced it before any new sale was recorded. Caleb had done a lazy search, seen Mom's name on Zillow or the tax assessor site, and assumed the coast was clear. He didn't know I had the nuclear launch codes in a bank vault 3 blocks away. I took a sip of water. The flashback reminded me of the pain I felt that day, the fear of losing my savings, the hurt of Mom trusting Caleb over me. But that pain was useful now. It was fuel. I wasn't just a scorned daughter anymore. I was the landlord, and my tenants were about to be very, very late on their rent. By the time the sun set in Denver, the chaos back in Minneapolis had reached a fever pitch. I poured myself a glass of red wine from the hotel minibar and decided to finally check the blocked messages. I didn't unblock them. I just checked the blocked messages folder on my carrier's app, which allowed me to see the logs without the senders knowing they were delivered. It was a masterclass in narcissism. 8:15 a.m. Sarah: where are you? This isn't funny, Georgia. 8:30 a.m. Caleb: open the door or I'm kicking it in. 8:45 a.m. Mom: Georgia, you are ruining my birthday. How can you be so selfish? The babies are cold. 9 a.m. Sarah: we're leaving the kids on the porch. If you don't open up in 5 minutes, it's on you. I flinched at that one. They wouldn't, surely? 9:30 a.m. Caleb: fine, we're going to breakfast. You better be there when we get back. 11 a.m. Sarah: where is your car? The garage is empty. Did you go to work on a Friday when you knew we were coming? Then the tone shifted. 1 p.m. Mom: honey, please pick up. We're worried. Are you hurt? The manipulation phase. 2 p.m. Caleb: I'm calling the cops. This is kidnapping. You agreed to watch them. The delusion phase. 3:30 p.m. We missed our reservation because of you. We're sitting in your driveway like homeless people. I hope you're happy. 4 p.m. Mom is crying. She's having chest pains. If she dies, it's murder, Georgia. I rolled my eyes. Mom always had chest pains when she didn't get her way. Then, a voicemail from Sarah. I played it on speaker. Listen to me, you spiteful little bitch, Sarah hissed. The mask was completely off. I know you're there. I know you're hiding. We called Mark to bring his lock-picking kit. We're getting into that house, and we're going to leave the kids there because we have a vacation to go on. If you aren't there to watch them, I'm calling Child Protective Services on you for abandonment. You hear me? I took a sip of wine. Child Protective Services on me? For children that weren't mine? In a house I wasn't in? The logic was astounding. But the part about Mark's lock-picking kit, that was actionable. I opened my smart home app. I pulled up the live feed from the front door camera. It was dark now in Minneapolis. The motion sensor light flooded the porch. There they were. The SUV was still parked crookedly in the driveway. The kids were asleep in the back seat. Thank God. Mom was sitting in the front passenger seat with a fast food bag. But on the porch, Caleb and Mark, Sarah's husband, were huddled around my front door lock. Mark was digging a tool into the keyhole. Sarah was standing behind them holding a flashlight phone app. "Hurry up, Mark," Sarah shouted. "I need to pee." "Ideally, don't scratch the paint," Caleb muttered. "It's going to be my house soon anyway." I watched them for a moment, a mix of disgust and amusement swirling in my gut. They were breaking and entering. They were literally committing a felony on camera. I pressed the microphone button on the app. My voice boomed out of the doorbell speaker, loud and distorted. "Smile, you're on camera." On the screen, they all jumped. Mark dropped his tools. Caleb spun around, looking for the source of the sound. "Georgia," Sarah screamed at the doorbell, "open this goddamn door." "I'm not home," I said through the app, "and you are trespassing. You have 5 minutes to get off my property before I call the police." "You can't call the police on family," Mom yelled from the car window. She had rolled it down. "This is my house." "Actually," I said, savoring the words, "it's not. And Caleb, stop kicking the door. That mahogany finish cost $2,000. "I don't care," Caleb roared. He picked up a garden gnome, my favorite garden gnome, and smashed it against the door. "I'm getting in." That was it. I closed the microphone. I dialed the non-emergency number for the Minneapolis Police Department. I knew the precinct captain. Our company did logistics for their charity drive. "Yes," I told the dispatcher. "I'd like to report a break-in in progress at 42 Oak Street. 3 adults. Yes, I have video evidence. They are armed with burglary tools. Yes, I am the homeowner. No, they do not have permission to be there." I hung up and watched the screen. 5 minutes, I whispered. The meltdown was about to meet the blue lights of the law, and I was safe in Denver, 800 miles away, watching the show. The next 10 minutes were the longest of my life, yet I couldn't look away from the tiny screen of my phone. Caleb had given up on the lock and was now trying to pry open the living room window. Sarah was hysterical, alternating between screaming at the doorbell and screaming at her husband. "She's bluffing," Caleb yelled, wrestling with the window screen. "She wouldn't dare call the cops on us. She's too soft. She's always been soft." Soft. I remembered the times I stayed up all night helping him with his homework so he wouldn't fail high school. I remembered paying his bail when he got a DUI at 22. I remembered paying for Sarah's wedding dress because Mom couldn't afford it. I wasn't soft. I was exhausted. And now I was hardened steel. Blue and red lights flashed across the driveway, reflecting off the white SUV. The silence on the porch was instant. 2 patrol cars pulled up. 4 officers stepped out. "Step away from the door," one officer commanded, hand resting on his holster. It's okay," Sarah shrieked, putting her hands up. "We're family. My sister lives here. She's playing a prank on us." "Does she know you're trying to pry her window open, ma'am?" the officer asked, shining a flashlight on the bent screen in Caleb's hands. "I live here," Mom yelled from the car. She struggled out of the SUV, waving her cane. "I am Evelyn Miller. This is my house. My daughter is having a mental breakdown and locked us out." The officer looked confused. He walked up to the doorbell camera. He knew I was likely watching. "Ma'am," he addressed the camera, "this is Officer Daniels. Can you hear me?" I pressed the button. "Yes, officer. My name is Georgia Miller. I am the sole owner of this property." "These people do not live here. They have been asked to leave. I am currently out of state. I would like them removed from my property immediately." "She's lying!" Caleb shouted. "Check the deed. It's in my mom's name." "Officer," I continued, my voice calm and corporate, "if you check the address in your system, you will see the utilities and security are registered to Georgia Miller. I want to press charges for trespassing and attempted breaking and entering if they do not leave right now." The officer turned back to Caleb. "Sir, put the screen down. Step off the porch." "But—" "Now, sir." I watched as the police herded my family back to their cars. There was a lot of pointing and shouting. I saw the officer writing citations. Then, my phone rang. It was the officer. Ms. Miller? Yes. We've cleared the porch. However, Mrs. Evelyn Miller is claiming she has a medical emergency. She says she's having heart palpitations. I sighed. She has a history of faking medical episodes to avoid consequences, officer. But if she claims she's sick, please call an ambulance. Do not let her back in the house. Understood. We're calling EMS. I watched as the ambulance arrived. Mom was loaded onto a stretcher, clutching her chest, looking around wildly to see if her performance was garnering sympathy. Caleb tried to get in the ambulance with her. Family only, the paramedic said. I am family, Caleb yelled. We only have room for one, the paramedic said. Caleb looked at the ambulance, then at his new white SUV, then at the police officers. I have to stay with the kids, Caleb said. He stepped back. He abandoned his mother, the woman who just gave him an $800,000 house. He let her go to the hospital alone because he didn't want to deal with the hassle. The ambulance drove off. The police told Caleb and Sarah to leave or be arrested. Defeated, Caleb got into the white SUV. Sarah and Mark got into their minivan. They backed out of my driveway, leaving tire marks on the lawn. The porch was empty. The gnome lay in pieces. The window screen was bent. But my house was secure. I closed the app. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the sheer magnitude of what had just happened. I had crossed the Rubicon. There was no going back to Sunday dinners after this. No more family helps family. I had just declared war. I looked at the clock. It was 9 p.m. The bank opened at 9 a.m. tomorrow. I had 12 hours to prepare. I opened the file Linda had sent me. The gambling debts, the messages. And then I saw something else in Linda's file, a scanned document. It was a loan application Caleb had filled out last week. Under collateral, he had listed 42 Oak Street, inheritance pending, and under guarantor, he had forged a signature, Georgia Miller. My eyes widened. He hadn't just tried to steal the house. He had tried to frame me for the loan he was going to take out against it. He was going to use my credit score to destroy my own property. The rage that had been burning hot suddenly turned ice cold. This wasn't just a civil dispute anymore. This was criminal fraud. Okay, Caleb, I whispered to the empty hotel room. You want my credit score? You're going to get the full force of my legal team instead. I picked up the phone and dialed Mr. Sterling, my personal attorney. It was late, but he would answer for me. Hello, his gruff voice answered. Mr. Sterling, it's Georgia. I need you to fly to Denver and bring a forensic accountant. We have a funeral to plan. Who died? He asked. My relationship with my family, I said, and my brother's freedom. The flight back to Minneapolis felt shorter than the flight out. Maybe it was because I wasn't running away anymore. I was returning to the scene of the crime, but this time, I was the sheriff. I didn't go home. I couldn't. The thought of walking into that house, seeing the damaged door and the bent window screen, felt too raw. Instead, I went straight to the sleek, glass-walled office of Sterling and Associates downtown. Mr. Sterling was waiting for me. He was a man of few words and expensive suits, the kind of lawyer who didn't bark because he knew how to bite. Beside him sat a forensic accountant named Sarah, ironic, I know, and, to my surprise, Linda. Linda looked tired, her eyes red-rimmed, but she was sitting upright. She had brought a stack of documents that looked like they could bury a small village. Are you ready for this? Sterling asked, sliding a cup of black coffee across the mahogany conference table toward me. I've never been more ready, I said, taking a sip. The caffeine hit my system like rocket fuel. Did they agree to the meeting? Oh, they agreed, Sterling smirked. Your brother seems to think this is a surrender negotiation. He believes you're scared of the trespassing charges being flipped on you, or that you're ready to buy them out to keep the peace. He requested, and I quote, a settlement check and an apology. I laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. He's going to get one of those things, but it won't be a check. We set the stage. The conference room was cold, the air conditioning humming a low, ominous note. I sat at the head of the table. Sterling was on my right. Linda was sequestered in the adjoining room behind a one-way mirror. We needed her to hear everything, but I didn't want Caleb to see her until the trap was sprung. At 2 p.m. sharp, the receptionist buzzed us. The Miller family is here. They walked in like they owned the place. Caleb was wearing a suit that was too tight in the shoulders, trying to look like the business tycoon he pretended to be. Mom was in a wheelchair, playing the part of the frail invalid to perfection, though I noticed she had managed to put on full makeup. Sarah trailed behind them, looking nervous, her eyes darting around the room. They stopped when they saw me. I didn't stand up. I didn't smile. I just watched them. Well, Caleb said, pulling out a chair for Mom, look who decided to show up. Nice of you to join us, Georgia. I hope you're ready to explain why you had our mother thrown into an ambulance like a criminal. Sit down, Caleb, I said. My voice was quiet, but it echoed in the room. Don't tell me what to do, he snapped, but he sat. Sarah took the seat furthest from me. Let's make this quick, Mom said, her voice trembling with that practiced frailty. Georgia, you have broken my heart. Truly, locking us out, calling the police. I raised you better than that. But because I am a forgiving mother, and because it's my birthday week, I am willing to let this go. If you sign the paper agreeing to watch the kids for the rest of the week and transfer the title of the minivan to Caleb as compensation for his distress, we can put this behind us. I looked at Sterling. He didn't blink. We aren't here to discuss babysitting, Evelyn, I said, dropping the mom. The shock on her face was immediate. I had never called her by her first name. We are here to discuss the estate and the fraud. Caleb laughed, a loud barking sound. Fraud? The only fraud here is you pretending you care about this family. We know you saw the will, Georgia. That's why you ran away. You're mad because Mom left the house to me. Deal with it. It's her house, her choice. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a crisp document, the new will. It's signed, witnessed, and notarized, Caleb said, slamming it on the table. 42 Oak Street belongs to me upon Mom's death. And since I have power of attorney, he pulled out another document, I have the authority to manage her assets right now. So, technically, when you called the cops on me, you were kicking me off property I control. I could sue you for harassment. I let the silence stretch. I wanted them to feel comfortable. I wanted them to feel like they had won. So, just to be clear, I said, leaning forward, you are asserting that Evelyn Miller owns the property at 42 Oak Street and therefore has the right to bequeath it to you. Yes, Mom said, sitting up straighter in her wheelchair. It's my home, Georgia. I bought it with your father 40 years ago. And you, I turned to Caleb, you are claiming that you have a buyer lined up for this property? An off-market deal? Caleb's eyes narrowed. How do you know about that? I know a lot of things, Caleb. Answer the question. Yeah, I have a buyer, Caleb said defiantly. So what? It's smart business. Liquidity. Mom needs the cash for her care. Right, her care, I said, not your gambling debts. Caleb's face turned a blotchy red. You shut your mouth. I have one more question, I said. Last week, you applied for a consolidation loan for $50,000 from First National Bank. You listed the house as collateral, and you listed a guarantor. Caleb froze. He stopped breathing. The air in the room seemed to vanish. "I don't know what you're talking about," he mumbled, looking down at the table. "I think you do," I said. I opened my folder. I didn't pull out the documents yet. I just let him see the edge of the papers. "You used my name, Caleb. You used my social security number. You forged my signature." "That's a lie!" Mom shrieked. "Caleb would never do that. You're making things up because you're jealous." "Am I?" I looked at Mom. "You signed the witness line on the loan application, Evelyn. You watched him forge my name." Mom's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She looked at Caleb, then back at me. I didn't have my glasses on. He said it was for insurance." "Stop lying." Caleb slammed his hand on the table. "This is a bluff. You don't have anything. You're just trying to scare us into giving you a cut of the house money. Well, it's not happening. The house is mine. The law says it's mine." I looked at Mr. Sterling. He nodded slightly. It was time. "Actually, Caleb," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper that forced them to lean in. "That's the funny part about laws. They rely on ownership, and you can't inherit something that doesn't belong to the deceased." I reached into the folder and pulled out the document with the blue cover, the original quitclaim deed from 2019. The paper smelled like old filing cabinets and victory. "Evelyn Miller hasn't owned that house for 5 years, I said. "I do." The room went so quiet you could hear the hum of the hard drive in the forensic accountant's laptop. "What is that?" Sarah asked, her voice small and trembling. She was the first to realize something was terribly wrong. I slid the document across the table. It spun slowly on the polished wood and came to a stop right in front of Mom. "Read it, Evelyn," I said. Mom's hands shook as she picked up the paper. She squinted at the text. Her face went pale, then gray. This is the paper from the foreclosure," she whispered. But you said this was just for the bank. You said it was a formality." "I said I was buying the house to save you from being homeless," I corrected her. "I paid off this $60,000 in arrears. I paid off the remaining $140,000 mortgage. I paid 5 years of property taxes. Did you think I did that out of the goodness of my heart while you treated me like a servant? No, I bought the asset." "But I live there," Mom cried. "It's my house." "You are a tenant." Sterling spoke up for the first time. His voice was deep and baritone, demanding attention. "You signed a lease agreement. Clause 14B explicitly states that the lease is terminated immediately upon any attempt by the tenant to encumber, sell, or misrepresent ownership of the property. By signing a will bequeathing the property to Caleb and by allowing him to list it as collateral for a loan, you have violated the lease." Sterling slid a second paper across the table. "This is an eviction notice," Sterling said. "You have 30 days to vacate the premises." Caleb snatched the deed from Mom's hands. He scanned it frantically, his eyes darting back and forth. He was looking for a loophole, a missing signature, anything. This isn't recorded," Caleb yelled, pointing a shaking finger at me. "I checked the county records. It's still in Mom's name. This is a fake. It's not valid." "It is a valid, notarized deed," Sterling explained calmly. "In this state, an unrecorded deed is perfectly binding between the parties who signed it." "We are recording it with the county clerk as we speak. My paralegal is at the courthouse right now." Caleb crumbled the paper in his fist. "You bitch! You planned this! You let us believe—" "I let you believe nothing," I cut him off. "I let you live in a house I paid for. I let you drive a car I helped pay for. And how did you repay me? You uninvited me from a birthday trip. You tried to turn me into a babysitter. And then I stood up. I needed to be standing for this next part. I wanted to loom over him. And then you tried to steal my identity. I signaled to the mirror. The door to the side room opened. Linda walked out. Caleb's face went from red to white. He looked like he had seen a ghost. "Linda?" he whispered. "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be at home." Linda didn't look at him. She walked over and stood next to me. She handed me a thick folder. "I'm not at home, Caleb," Linda said, her voice shaking but gaining strength with every word. "And I'm not depressed. I'm done." I opened Linda's folder. I pulled out the screenshots, the bank transfers to offshore gambling sites, the emails with the Slick Rick realtor, and finally, the loan application with the forged signature. "This," I held up the loan application, "is a felony, bank fraud, identity theft, forgery." Caleb sank back into his chair. He looked small. The arrogance was gone, replaced by the terrified look of a child who broke a vase, only this vase was his entire life. "Georgia, wait," Caleb stammered. "We can work this out. It was just a misunderstanding." "I was going to pay it back once the crypto took off." "There is no crypto," I yelled, slamming my hand on the table. The sound made everyone jump. "There is only you, stealing from your wife, stealing from your mother, and trying to steal from me." I turned to Sarah. She was crying silently. "And you," I said to Sarah, you knew he was broke. You knew he was manipulating Mom, but you went along with it because you wanted a free vacation and you wanted to be on the winning side. Well, pick a side now, Sarah, because Caleb is going to prison." "Prison?" Mom gasped. She grabbed Caleb's arm. "No, Georgia, you can't. He's your brother." "He's a criminal," I said. "Mr. Sterling has already drafted the affidavit. We are turning this evidence over to the district attorney." "Please," Mom wailed, trying to stand up from her wheelchair but failing. "Take the house. Keep the house. Just don't send him to jail. He won't survive in there. He's delicate." "He should have thought about that before he forged my signature," I said coldly. I looked at the camera in the corner of the room, imagining the thousands of people who would eventually hear this story. I felt a wave of adrenaline. This was it, the moment I took my power back. "Caleb," I said, "you have two choices. Option A, we proceed with the criminal charges. You go to jail for 5 to 10 years. Linda gets full custody of the twins. Mom gets evicted." Caleb was shaking his head, tears streaming down his face. "What's option B?" "Option B," I said. "You sign a full confession admitting to the fraud and the gambling debts. You sign over full custody to Linda immediately. You agree to a restraining order staying 500 feet away from me and my property. And you leave the state." "And Mom?" Sarah asked. "Mom goes into a state-funded assisted living facility," I said, "because she has no assets. I own the house, and I'm selling it." "You can't do that to me, Mom!" screamed. "You ceased being my mother when you signed a will disinheriting me to fund his gambling addiction," I said. "Now I'm just your landlord, and the lease is up." The silence that followed my ultimatum was heavy, suffocating. It was the sound of a family mythology dying, the myth that Caleb was special, the myth that Mom was a saint, the myth that I was a doormat. Caleb looked at the confession Sterling had placed in front of him. His hands were trembling so badly he couldn't hold the pen. I can't leave the state," Caleb whimpered. "I have no money. Where will I go?" "That's not my problem," I said. "Maybe you can ask one of your crypto friends for a couch to surf on, or maybe you can get a job. I hear McDonald's is hiring." "Georgia, please," Mom sobbed. She had abandoned the angry matriarch act and was now fully in the pitiful old woman mode. I'm old. I can't go to a home. They smell like urine and bleach. I want to stay in my house. I'll be good. I'll change the will back. I'll do whatever you want." I looked at her. I really looked at her. I saw the fear in her eyes, yes. But I also saw the calculation. She was still trying to negotiate. She still thought this was a transaction. "It's not your house, Evelyn," I repeated, "and I don't want you to be good. I want you to be accountable. For 30 years, you have enabled him." I pointed at Caleb. "You let him drain Dad's life insurance. You let him treat me like garbage. You bought him a car with my money. You are not a victim here. You are his accomplice." "I did it for love," she wailed. "No," I said softly. "You did it because he was your favorite, and you thought I would always be there to clean up the mess. But the janitor just quit." I turned back to Caleb. "Sign the papers, Caleb, or I call the detective waiting in the lobby." Caleb looked at Linda. "Linda, baby, please, tell her." "We can fix this. I'll go to therapy. I'll stop gambling." Linda took a step forward. For a second, I was worried she would cave. She had been conditioned to forgive him for a decade. But Linda reached into her purse and pulled out a ring, her wedding ring. She dropped it on the table. It made a sharp clink sound that felt like a gavel striking. "I don't want you to go to therapy, Caleb," Linda said. Her voice was steady now. "I want you to sign the custody agreement. I don't want my children growing up thinking it's okay to steal from women. Sign it." Caleb broke. He put his head in his hands and sobbed. Ugly, heaving sobs of a man who realized the world had finally stopped accommodating him. He picked up the pen. He signed the confession. He signed the custody papers. He signed the restraining order. Sterling took the papers immediately, checking the signatures. "It appears to be in order." "Get out," I said. "What?" Caleb looked up, his eyes swollen. "Get out of my office. Get out of my house. You have 24 hours to remove your personal effects from 42 Oak Street before I change the locks. If you are there after 24 hours, you will be arrested for trespassing." "But the car," Caleb said. "The SUV. It's in the driveway." "The SUV is in Mom's name," I said. "And since Mom has no income and I am no longer paying her bills, I assume the repo man will be coming for it shortly. Unless you want to take over the payments." Caleb didn't answer. He stood up, looking like a zombie, and shuffled out of the room. He didn't even look at Mom. Sarah stood up next. She looked at me, then at Mom. I have to go pick up the kids," Sarah said. "Sarah," Mom cried out, "take me with you. I can't stay in a facility. Let me live with you. You have the guest room." Sarah froze. We all knew Sarah's husband, Mark, hated Mom. He tolerated her because of the potential inheritance. Now that the inheritance was gone. I can't, Mom," Sarah stammered. "Mark, you know Mark, and with the kids, there's just no room." "I gave you $20,000 for your wedding," Mom screamed. "I babysat your children." "I'm sorry," Sarah yelled back, grabbing her purse. "I can't deal with this right now." Sarah ran out of the room, and then there were 4. Me, Linda, Sterling, and Mom. Mom sat in her wheelchair in the middle of the expensive conference room, completely alone. Her golden son had abandoned her, her dutiful daughter had fled, and the scapegoat was holding the keys. "Georgia," Mom whispered, "what happens to me?" I felt a twinge of pity. It was a reflex, a phantom limb pain from the daughter I used to be. But I looked at Linda, who was holding her freedom in her hands. I looked at the confession on the table. "Mr. Sterling will arrange for a social worker to assess you," I said formally. "We will find a state facility that accepts Medicaid. I will ensure you are moved safely." "You're not taking me home?" she asked, her voice small. No, I said. Home is for family, and as you made very clear with your invitation list, I'm not core family. I turned to Linda. Let's go get some dinner. On me. We walked out. I didn't look back. I heard Mom calling my name as the heavy glass door closed behind us, but for the first time in my life, I didn't turn around. 6 months have passed since that day in the lawyer's office. I wish I could say everything was magical and perfect immediately, but life isn't a fairy tale. It was messy for a while. Selling the house was emotional. Walking through the empty rooms of 42 Oak Street, I saw the ghosts of my childhood. I saw the kitchen where I learned to cook, the living room where Dad used to read to me. But I also saw the basement where Caleb hid from his responsibilities, and the dining table where Mom planned her manipulations. I sold it to a nice young couple. They were expecting their first child. When I handed them the keys, the wife hugged me. "It has such good bones," she said. "We're going to fill it with love." "You do that," I told her. "Make new memories." I used the proceeds from the sale to set up a trust fund for Caleb's twins and Sarah's kids, strictly for education, accessible only when they turn 25, and managed by a third-party trustee. Not a dime of it can be touched by their parents. It was my final act of being the provider, but this time on my terms. Caleb left the state. Last I heard from Linda, he was in Nevada, working as a valet parking attendant. He sends sporadic emails asking for money, which go straight to my spam folder. He hasn't seen the twins, and honestly, they are happier for it. Sarah tried to reconnect a few months ago. She sent a text saying, "Miss you, sis. Can we get coffee?" I didn't block her, but I didn't reply either. I'm not ready. Maybe I never will be. I realized that my peace is more important than her comfort. Mom is in a nursing facility about an hour away. It's not the Ritz, but it's clean and safe. I pay for a few extras, better cable TV, a hair appointment once a month, but I don't visit. I can't. Every time I think about going, I remember the text. Georgia is strong. She doesn't need anything. She was right. I am strong. Too strong to be used anymore. Linda and I have become close. She's flourishing. With the alimony, which I helped her legal team squeeze out of Caleb's remaining hidden assets, and a new job, she's a different woman. We have wine nights on Fridays. We don't talk about Caleb. We talk about the future. And as for me, I stayed in Denver for a while, but I eventually moved back to Minneapolis. Not to the suburbs, but to a downtown loft. Something modern, open, and entirely mine. I'm still the CFO, but I work differently now. I leave at 5 p.m. I take vacations, real vacations, where I don't check my email and I certainly don't babysit. I met someone too. His name is Trevor. He's an architect I met at a charity gala, the one I helped organize logistics for. He has kind eyes and his own money. On our third date, he asked me about my family. "It's just me," I told him. "I have a chosen family now." He didn't pry. He just took my hand and said, "Well, it's nice to meet you, Georgia." And he meant me, not Georgia the ATM, not Georgia the fixer, just Georgia. I'm sharing this story not because I want you to hate my family. I'm sharing it because I know there are thousands of Georges out there. You are the ones who pay the bills but don't get the invite. You are the ones who fix the problems but get called bossy. You are the ones who are expected to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. If that's you, I want you to listen to me closely. Stop. Put down the checkbook. Cancel the babysitting gig. And check the deed to your own life. Make sure your name is on it. Because the moment you stop trying to buy their love is the moment you realize you can afford to love yourself. And let me tell you, that kind of freedom, it's worth more than any inheritance. Thank you for listening to my story. I truly appreciate every single one of you who stuck with me through this emotional roller coaster. Until next time, take care of yourselves.